All right. So now that we've lured you all in with the giganto ship porn, ship model porn, we've got the Carcassonne homeworld carrier here in my office, and then we looked at images of the retribution. Let's go ahead and get into the roadmap roundup for May 1st. Um, and we'll breeze through this pretty quickly because it's mostly just hey, these are the things that are um, you know
Released.
released now because they are committed for 323. Um, but the important part is this bit about the progress tracker. So Nazaris, do you have it pulled up? Do you want to read
Yep.
the header?
Yep. So happy Wednesday, everyone. Every 2 weeks, we accompany the roadmap update with a brief explanatory note to give you insight into the decision making that led to any changes. This is a part of an effort. This is part of an effort to make our communication more transparent, more specific, and more insightful for all of you who help make Star Citizen and Squadron 42 possible. With that said, let's go ahead and jump into this week's roadmap roundup.
Alrighty. So notable changes for May 1st, 2024. Progress tracker. This is the juicy bit. And this is what has me very much eagerly anticipating to see what happens on this Wednesday. As you may have seen in the recent letter from the chairman, our development team isn't because they decided to mention this now, even though the letter from the chairman was like that was March, wasn't it? We're like 2 months past from that, and they're just now they're deciding to mention this. So um, our development team is in the process of outlining the necessary tasks to achieve Star Citizen's full 1.0 commercial release. While our production schedule is still in progress, we intend to share a portion of it with you by updating the progress tracker up to the end of 2024, with more to be shared later in the year. We're nearly finished and aiming to provide more details in the coming weeks. So, this was 2 weeks ago. And the roadmap's getting updated Wednesday, 2 days from now. So stay tuned
March
to the
17th.
roadmap for March 17th. So we're
14th.
this
March
is
14th. Sorry.
this is weeks after that, and they had talked about that at that point, as well as Jake had said in a comment on Spectrum that they were looking at doing this, and now they're confirming that they're doing it, and they're saying that it's coming soon. Um, you know, we are nearly finished and aiming to provide more details in the coming weeks. So stay tuned to the roadmap for more information very soon. So I think it's probably going to be this Wednesday. Now,
Yes. That's
yeah,
how I read it too.
okay. Now they say
So,
up to the end of
yeah,
2024, which means the downs or upstream teams. Um, the
if
upstream
we're
teams
still
are the
on that
ones.
sort of a schedule,
Yeah. If they haven't changed how that
I
works, yeah.
I would imagine with all this talk about how they're doing stuff, I would take a stab at it's no longer going to be specific, not specific, but it won't be so dependent on parts of features or parts of teams. It will be we're playing these features out. Like this is what these are the lineup of what we're doing this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they restructure the progress tracker at all with this change, or if it's going to be just an update using the current
If they
format.
don't restructure it, it's going to look weird because you have like 50% of the company in the core gameplay team.
No, I'm sorry. I mean in terms of like what you're talking about, like working towards features and stuff.
Like the
Like
UI, the front end.
yeah,
Ah, yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It would be interesting.
If they stick with how they've done it all, prior to this, where the upstream teams are the ones that you see a year's worth of work, the current quarter and then the following three, and then the downstream teams are the ones where you see the current, essentially the current quarter. What they would do is, because it's May, we would get the rest of 2020. They would probably fill in what they've had since the last time they updated it nearly a year ago, um, for all the teams, and then they would give us the upstream to the end of 2024, and they would probably, I won because it's I the I wonder if they would just give us up to this current quarter, um, because we're still have a month and a half left of Q2. I imagine they would catch us up to Q2 for downstream, and then resume, pick it back up with, at the end of Q2, beginning of Q1, with the Q3 schedule for downstream. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I lost the line somewhere in my head. But yes,
Yeah,
it makes sense.
yeah. The progress
I get what
tracker
you're
for
saying.
the downstream teams would show the downstream teams work out to the end of June, and the upstream teams out to the end of December. And then end of June, beginning of July, just like they always do. The beginning of the new quarter is when they would add the new the new quarter schedule for the downstream teams, and who knows what they would do with the upstream teams. But it'll be interesting to see. I think the biggest thing for me, curiosity wise, is seeing how they're prioritizing work for what are they trying to get in with 4.0? What are they trying to get in with the patches after that in terms of, because that's why I haven't really cared that much about the progress tracker, because they told us at CitizenCon, here's what we're working on for the next year. And then they're telling us each month what they're working on in the monthly reports. So it's like not really a mystery. I think the only thing that it
Hacking and
might,
scanning are something though that are they like
yeah.
touched on them and like, hey, those are things that are out there, and they've been like, hey, we're working on the Legionnaire. Just like,
Mm-hmm.
are you now?
But are you really? Yeah.
And so it's just like none of the gameplay teams. It's only the ship teams that we've seen working on, and we know that they held off the Legionnaire for hacking,
Yep.
like very specifically.
Well, and they
So the
said
fact
when
that
they
they're working
first
on
put
it,
it back into white box production, they said they were, they got the white box, up to speed and everything, and they're waiting on, like, I think they said like confirmation or whatever from the gameplay team, something like that. This next
and so far none
season
of that
of
gameplay has showed
ISC,
up in the monthly report.
yeah, they haven't
Yeah.
talked about it. They haven't talked about hacking gameplay design in ages.
Aegis?
So, yeah, yeah, ages. So yeah, it'll be. I think that's the part that really has me curious in terms of, okay, well, what more are they planning for 4.0, and then what are they targeting? What of the CitizenCon list and what beyond the CitizenCon list? Because it's not just the things at CitizenCon, it's other things that they've been working on, especially the PU teams who didn't get moved back over from Squadron. What are they working on for the rest of this year that wasn't shown at Squadron? You know, uh, maybe our first taste of building interiors, maybe they're picking back up asteroid facilities. Maybe they're going to be working, they also have teams working on the underground portion of the new distribution centers. Maybe they're going to start talking about, I don't know. So it'll be,
I think all three.
yeah,
So
it'll be,
I think
there's a
they're going
lot,
to
there are
use
some
the
blanks to fill in.
pipelines. I think they're going to use the pipeline they made up for underground facilities or distribution centers. And because it's so art heavy, just have these splinter teams of all these different facilities that's going to use it. So building interiors, asteroids facilities, and the updates to underground facilities. Because now it's just art. You have the systems, now go make just hours and hours and months of art.
Mm-hmm. So
And
you're
then just
thinking they're going to
pop it
form
in.
splinter cells?
Oh boy.
I'm going to
Sure.
be I'm going to be extra dad in the future. Yeah, so you got to buckle up, buddy. All right.
I lost my buckle.
Yeah. Let's continue. So yeah, definitely something to be excited about for the progress tracker. It's not as meaningful just yet, but after this year, it will, especially with the big update at CitizenCon, it will be even, I think, even more meaningful than it was before. I think there are going to be a lot more people paying
Yes.
attention to it.
And also, if anyone here thinks it, please don't. 1.0 is not this year. 1.0 is not at the end of the year. It's not the Q4 patch. It's not 1.0. We're not getting 1.0 for the next couple of years. Stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Please.
Yeah.
I don't know
I don't.
who. I was told by at least one person that they thought 1.0 was this year. It's not.
It's
It's not.
the people saying, well, why are they doing this if they're talking about 1.0? It's like 1.0 isn't for several
1.0
years.
is not anywhere near us.
We you have to remember, everybody, they've still got multiple years of development to get to 1.0. They're just working on the roadmap to 1.0 and what what they want the 1.0 vision to look like. And so, okay, here's what we want for 1.0. Okay, now everybody go do these things. But
Yeah.
it's still going to be a few years. Not this year, not next year. You know, who knows? Maybe 2026.
When Tyro got to Squadron, they made their 1.0 vision when he got there for Squadron.
Yep.
And then it took Squadron, a small single-player linear storyline, 2 years to get to the finish line.
Yeah. 2 to 3 years.
No, 2 years to get to feature complete. Now they're trying to get to content complete. So 3 years ish, 3.5, 4 years, and that's much smaller game.
Mm-hmm. Now, granted, I mean, we have a lot of stuff already done, but yeah, I do think that we're looking at, I think it's a little bit of hopium to say 2 years. I think it's 3 years is pretty middle of the road realistic, but yeah.
1 year is
okay.
you've OD'd. You've OD'd on copium. It's just
somebody has been taking their Paramed device loaded with copium and hopium and just shooting you up until you pass out on the floor. All right, Nazeris, please continue. I have my headphones. I'm gonna run and go grab a beer because I have a feeling we're gonna be singing.
Then when you get back, I'm gonna go grab some. Okay. So, release view, Arena Commander, Gravlev, or Grav Royale. The team encountered a critical issue with this game mode that requires additional testing. I keep wanting to say an additional testing. For the time being, we are removing this card from the release view until this is resolved. Is the problem that Gravlev vehicles just spontaneously combust? So Grav Royale is being removed. We still have the Grav Racing in game that is already released, and you can go play it right now in 3.23 live. The following features have passed their final review for 3.23.0. Therefore, we are toggling their status to committed, and in the sentence they keep leaving off because they think it's redundant or something. They're changing the color to blue. I liked when they said they're changing color to blue. I don't know why. It just always got me. Always like it. Distribution centers, creating new traversable areas offering gameplay opportunities in corporate industrial environments. The initial release includes the service level of the facilities, with underground areas coming later in a later update. There we go. I can read, not dyslexic. The Vulkan graphics API support, converting the Star Citizen renderer from DX11 or DirectX 11 to the Vulkan graphic API. This allows spreading GPU submission work over CPU cores or many CPU cores, and enabling many new tech features that were previously unavailable, such as ray tracing. Vulkan is able to be opted into via options or the options menu with this release, but it will eventually fully replace DirectX 11 in the future. Okay. Water simulation and rendering improvements. The water in Star Citizen now supports a multi-scale GPU wave simulation to support dynamic reaction to thrusters, aerodynamic wake, explosions, and collisions. The rendering has been overhauled with improved waves, reflections, refractions, underwater fog, and helmet effects. Welcome back.
All right, I'm back with my beer. Before you go,
yes.
Have you experienced Vulkan yet, and what are your thoughts?
It's always on for me. There's a very subtle thing that the reason I will not go back to GX11. It's a very subtle thing. It's not even a mainline feature. The color grading, simply the color grading, is just such a better scene than on DX11. Like, it's a bit darker, it's a bit richer, but it doesn't have that weird, like, hazy cardboard look to anything that you get in DX11.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good. Yes, it is heavy.
Noticed
it does have a lot of graphical problems.
And I wasn't sure, like, yeah, it feels like it has more clarity of color.
Yes, that's a good explanation of it.
Yeah, like there isn't really any of the washing out without having to turn on HDR, which just makes whites way too bright for me. Yeah,
I know a
it's
lot of like glass textures are really hard in the game right now for Vulcan. Um,
oh
so if you fly an Origin ship, be ready to find your UIs not being nice. Um, and I don't know if it's a 323 bug or a Vulcan bug, but when you go into quantum travel, you'll get this weird image that shows up while you're spooling into it. So you're like accelerating, and then when you're into it, it'll go away. In the Carrick specifically, it will show up an image of a reverse, like a reflection image, but without it being pasted onto the glass. It just shows the picture in front of you. So it's the reflection probe. Basically, it's like looking behind you from the pilot seat.
makes
So
you
for a
wonder
split
what
second, you're
that will
looking
look
forward
like
and you see that.
once we get all the new lighting. Because
Yeah,
the
I think that's specifically a bug that needs to be worked
oh,
on.
gotcha.
I don't think it's gonna matter with that, and I also don't know if they're doing reflections with. Oh no, they did say real time reflections on the squadron map way back when.
Mm-hmm.
No, that was just updated, not real time, was it? I don't remember. Um, but yeah, as far as they've said recently, ray tracing is just going to be GI. Though I'd love if they put support in for all the facets of ray tracing and then let us turn them off and on to get the lighting and environment experience we'd like.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to
Because
see what.
GI obviously is the biggest bang, but reflection is the realistic nuance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot they can do with it, and I think it's just more of a time will tell. But the way that we'll get into that because they do talk about it in the monthly report, and it makes me excited for 4.0 because I think that's when they might be targeting it. But yeah, Vulcan for me. So Vulcan, like
Wait, you think they're putting in RTGI in 4.0?
I think they're gonna get their global lumen.
Yeah, GI.
Mm-hmm. Well, you said that. Yeah. Yep. I think
Yeah,
that's
ray
what that means.
tracing, global illumination,
Yep.
RTGI. And the fact that they have DLSS and FSR and TSR now,
Mm-hmm.
it's so good. You get so many frames. You get so many frames.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing that isn't in right now with Vulcan Dell is that they don't have the multi-threading in. But for me, it's even without the multi-threading, Vulcan is so much smoother. My frames have gone down, but like before, I would even with and I have a Intel 12900K, which notoriously has the issues of um, me needing to turn off the efficiency cores and take them away from
Oof.
Star Citizen because it doesn't play nice with those. But I don't have to do that now because why you had to do it is like the frames would be good on the frame counter, but the frame generation was all out of sync, and so you get hitching, on a very regular basis, like hitching and stuttering. And so, but if you turn it off, it would be smooth. Well, now I don't have that on, and with Vulcan, especially with DLSS, it is consistently, even in cities, I'll have 35 to 50 FPS, um, and it's super smooth. And then out in space, I'm not getting 120 FPS like I was in some places, but I'm getting 90, plus or more with no hitching. Everywhere it's just been super smooth. And there's a few little glitches here and there, but it's been a much smoother and more polished experience. It feels like, um, it makes it feel more playable, or and less unoptimized for me. But I am running an Intel 12900K with a 3090, so and DDR5. But yeah, I am already very pleased with it just because of stability and smoothness, and that's without multi-threading. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes with multi-threading. But I also do have concerns for, is this going to bork, whether or not it accurately supports the efficiency cores on Intel CPU, the latest generation of Intel CPUs. So we'll see.
It was real-time ray tracing or real-time
Yeah.
reflections.
Oh, cool.
Took me way too long to find that bookmark.
Yeah. All right. If you want to go get a thing, or you said you're going to go grab a drink, I'll keep reading, and then we'll.
All right,
get
we
into
are
the
at
reports.
volumetric clouds.
Okay. All right, volumetric clouds update. Updating Star Citizen's volumetric cloud technology to improve overall visual quality and performance, including the addition of both volumetric clouds as well as implementation of ground fog. And that's one of the things with Vulkan and DLSS on at quality. 10pound42 did a really good video doing a whole bunch of side-by-sides with Vulkan on and DLSS versus TSR versus FSR at quality of performance and I think it's mixed or whatever it is or balanced. And for me, running it at quality with DLSS and Vulkan on for me gives like the best image, and it's performant and it's smooth. So I have no complaints. I'm like, okay, well, it feels like it can only get better from here. But it has made it so that way when I'm looking at the clouds on high, they look like the clouds on very high before. And I don't have any of that artifacting, or it's very minimal. It's which means I get better performance than I did because I liked running around with very high clouds on, because all that little artifacting and dots and stuff just bothered me. Image upscaling. Implementing support for GPU upscaling, including DLSS, FSR, and an in-house TSR solution. And it's crazy that the in-house solution seems to be so much better than FSR. Oof. Replication layer update. Over the course of the 323 patch cycle, the replication layer will be moved off of the game servers and set up as its own standalone service. In the short term, this allows for greater server recovery in the event of the crash. This is also a critical next step towards server meshing. And it is part of the hybrid service. So there are a multitude of services that either are now or will be in the future no longer on the dedicated game server and running separately in order to allow them to scale in their support of the game universe, rather than just being tied to a single server. But also to allow for them to not be tied to the server, so that way when if a server crashes or suffer, you don't lose that server and its that service and its abilities. That keeps going, and it's ready to go when a new server spins up, but you don't lose track of that information. But they also help to remove that performance burden from the dedicated game servers, so that the servers themselves will run at a higher server FPS, and thus things will, AI will work more effectively. Things will get updated more quickly. The game should run as intended, rather than what we've had for so long, where the servers are just bogged down doing so many different things. Alrighty, so before we get into the monthly reports, I'm going to go ahead and pull this up, and we're going to take a look at this statement for the most recent 323.1 PTU build, which is the Invictus Launch Week build. So we're going to skip all this
the
other
medical
stuff.
rant.
Yep, this is the medical rant. I'm not going to rant. I'm just going to say my piece, and I'll probably talk more about it later, as long as my wife doesn't go into labor this week. But first, a sip of beer.
How do people classify alcohols as specific demographics. There we go.
What do you mean?
I've been told that I drank an old man's drink because I like gin. Why is that? I don't understand. Like, I'm not really into the whole society thing. I'm just bad at society and knowing things. I'd be the worst anthropologist ever. I'm being pinged from many people. I just don't understand why. What about gin makes it an old man's drink? What about
Gosh, I
old
have no
man
idea.
makes gin? Okay.
Yeah, I don't drink gin just because I don't like the taste that much. I'm a bourbon guy, but I don't know. I had never thought of it being as an old man's drink, but
That's what I've been told.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't drink a lot of liquor, and I certainly don't make a lot of cocktails. But I've always been a whiskey bourbon guy, and the problem for me is one, I like tequila only in that I like margaritas. I vote I don't really like other tequila drinks, but um, for me the problem for me is like vodka and gin give me heartburn, super bad. Whereas
Yeah, that
for
would be a
some reason
problem.
the other liquors do not, and I don't know why.